And it's time for Lefties Losing It. Time to check in on the lunatic asylum masquerading as a news network. MSNBC is calling itself MSNOW these days, but it's still just as dishonest and delusional. Here they feature a woman called Megan Hayes, who goes on some wild rant about Donald Trump suffering cognitive decline and ageing rapidly. Let's have a listen, and then I have an absolute doozy for you.
That this is a real concern that he falls asleep during press conferences, and who is making these decisions. It seemed the last person in his ear makes the final decisions, or testing that they're doing in focus groups of what targets the most hate is what he seems to say out loud, regardless if it has anything to do with the actual policy at hand. So, I think that the American people are starting to see more of this, and I think that this will come to fruition in the midterms.
Yeah, the man who functions on just 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night, the one who members of the media, including TDS-afflicted CNN reporters, say they cannot keep up with, he's the one suffering cognitive decline. How stupid do they think the American people are? Well, the fact that they would have this woman, Megan Hayes, pushing this propaganda tells you just how stupid MSNBC or MSNOW think their audience is. Because Megan Hayes, who you just saw, is the same one who was in this bunny suit. Yes, she's the former White House staffer dressed in an Easter bunny costume who intervened to save President Biden from embarrassing himself by wandering off in the wrong direction or trying to answer journalists' questions. Yes, that actually happened. They had a staffer in a bunny suit handling the president, and that same staffer is now on MSNOW defaming President Trump. And it's not just her. MSNOW also had this doctor on who a year ago was telling us how sharp Joe Biden was. Apparently Biden was in excellent shape and robust. That must be why the Democrats dumped him. And this doctor now claims Donald Trump is tired, incoherent and slow. These people exist in a parallel universe, or they're liars. You decide.
Cardiovascularly, he's in excellent shape. I'm a pulmonologist. I see this all the time in octogenarians. I think he's actually quite high functioning as an octogenarian and keeping up that schedule.
But it's clear that there's age-related cognitive decline. I mean, that's obvious. His response to somebody fainting in the Oval Office really conveyed that. He didn't show any signs of concern. He didn't really do anything. He was slow to respond. And that slowness and fatigue you're seeing more and more in his public events. So that's one. 2, he's confused a lot. 3, he sometimes mumbles sort of incoherent nonsense when he's asked a question in the press pool in the Oval Office.
I wonder why trust in the media has plummeted to record lows. It's a mystery. Now let's have a laugh at Kamala lovers. They gathered in Nashville on the weekend to hear from the failed presidential candidate. And these people still believe Kamala Harris was robbed, that she should be president.
She's the best qualified out there.
What makes her so qualified?
Oh gosh, that's a hard one.
A lot of, drawing a blank here.
What was her biggest accomplishment as VP?
She really made a difference at the borders. She stopped people from coming into the country illegally.
She did what now? She stopped people coming into the country illegally? Is that what you said, lady? She was the border czar who oversaw millions come in illegally every year, more than 2 million a year, record numbers. Complete crisis at the border for years. Surely that's the dumbest thing that woman is going to say, surely.
Why do you think Kamala lost the election?
I think there was cheating.
Okay, yeah, we hit rock bottom. The democracy deniers are making me feel unsafe, folks. Let's go back to Nashville one last time and see if one of these Kamala lovers is able to name anything she did that made America better.
Let's see, what was her biggest accomplishment? She was able to inspire a lot of females.
What was her biggest accomplishment as VP?
Now, pop star Sabrina Carpenter had a little tanty because one of her songs was used in an ICE video. Let's have a look at that video.
this one? Have you ever tried this one?
She posted, "This video is evil and disgusting. Do not ever involve me or my music to benefit your inhumane agenda." And the White House didn't take that lying down. Here is the response from Deputy Press Secretary Abigail Jackson. She said, "Here's a short and sweet message for Sabrina Carpenter. We won't apologise for deporting dangerous criminal illegals, murderers, rapists and pedophiles from our country. Anyone who would defend these sick monsters must be stupid, or is it slow?" Let's bring in host of Sarah Gonzalez Unfiltered on Blaze TV and VP of the Texas Family Project. Sarah, I love that they are on the front foot always, and it's something that has been lacking over the years from the GOP.
Yeah, I totally agree, Rita. Thank you for having me on. I completely agree that this Trump administration 2.0 will be one for the history books, the optics, the PR, not just from the White House, but from all of these different government agencies, all of these different departments. They seem to understand what time it is. They seem to understand that the mainstream media in this country has lost its footing. They have lost their stronghold on the American people. And if we can get this in front of the American people on social media, we can get way more traction than on a CNN or an MSNBC. And that is exactly what the Trump administration is doing. I personally love it. It's one of my favorite things to log on to social media and see the Trump administration, see the White House accounts fighting back, because the fact of the matter is the American people are with them. We all agree these people should not be in our country. We don't care one bit about what some singer is upset about with regard to her song. All we care about is that the deportations are happening and that they are happening at an accelerated rate, and liberals can cry harder about it.
Now, the Democrats and their propaganda arm, the bulk of the mainstream media, is right now up in arms. They're really going after War Secretary Pete Hegseth over strikes against narco boats. They're suggesting killing these drug runners is some sort of a war crime. I could play you 100 examples, but here is The View's Sunny Hostin.
I can't speak to the law of it. I don't know, I'm not a geopolitical expert, but in terms of the law of it, you're right, Sarah. That is why those Army vets explained, do not follow, you do not have to follow illegal orders. You know why? Because if this is deemed to have been war crimes, which by all accounts right now, there are 7 sources that said Pete Hegseth did say kill them all, even after there were 2 survivors, which you're supposed to do under international law. You are supposed to take those fighters as war criminals, prisoners of war, and you're supposed to give them refuge, and you're supposed to take care of them, and then you are supposed to put them into a court of law.
I do love how she says she can't speak to the law of it and then says in terms of the law of it, all within the first 5 seconds of that rant. But Sarah, tell me about this issue and the Democrats and the media siding with the drug cartels and narco boats that are bringing deadly drugs into America that are killing thousands.
Yeah, it's simple. The Democrats have chosen complete chaos and criminality as their party platform. The Democrats have consistently, since President Trump got elected and was inaugurated and came into office ready to implement his agenda, the Democrats have decided that they would take the side. They would be the party of criminals. They would be the party of illegal gang members. I mean, this is the same party who cried over a gang member. They called him a Maryland father. It turned out he was an illegal gang member who was here. And they cried because we deported him to El Salvador, which, by the way, Rita, let's not forget, was his home country. We did him the favor of returning him from where he came. We didn't even get a thank you for that. I mean, the Democrats, time and time again, they are given the opportunity to choose law and order, to choose to protect American citizens. And every single time they choose the opposite. They choose America last. They choose these narco terrorists. They choose the drug dealers. They choose the illegal immigrants and the rapists and the gang members. And I say, when someone shows you who they really are, as the great Maya Angelou said, believe them. The Democrats are the party of criminals at this point.
And we have seen these drone strikes time and time again. I'm not saying this one actually got the wrong target, but certainly there have been many in recent years under the Obama administration, under the Biden administration, where they did kill the wrong targets after that catastrophic botched withdrawal out of Afghanistan, they targeted, I think it was 10 innocent Afghanis that they killed, including a number of children. And afterwards, they said, yeah, we got that wrong. There was no accountability. There were no sackings. There was no reckoning for that horrible human rights violation. And now they're wanting people to be feeling sorry for these drug runners. I mean, it seems incredible because that was only just a few years ago. They must think the whole country has got selective amnesia.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right, Rita. And I would say this, I would take it a step further. It is such a slap in the face. It is so offensive to the millions of American families who have had to deal with burying their loved ones because of these drugs that are being run into our country. I mean, think about these people, these narco terrorists. They are profiting off of American death. They are profiting off of Americans being harmed. And the Democrats, instead of cheering our administration on for making this country safer, they are actually calling them war criminals. I saw the Washington Post, I believe, they wrote this very sad story. It was very sad, sympathetic to these poor narco terrorists who were left stranded on this island with this boat that wouldn't work and how we were supposed to feel sorry for them. And I'm like, I'm actually really glad that they got blown up. I hope more of them get blown up. I don't want these people bringing drugs into my country. And I believe that my thought process represents the absolute majority of the American people. We're just not buying it anymore.
Now, ousted Oxford student President George Aberoni, who celebrated Charlie Kirk's assassination. Well, it wouldn't surprise you, Sarah. He's now playing the victim. Have a listen to this.
Calling out what has also been a lot of kind of just racist and classist vitriol based on the fact that I'm a black person, the fact that, you know, I'm a student at Oxford.
Sarah, he celebrated the shooting of Charlie Kirk, who he had hosted for a debate. He had stood face to face with this man, and yet he had that absolutely disgusting reaction. And listen here as he tries to justify that reaction.
Mr. Kirk's comments don't exist in a vacuum, you know. He was an incredibly kind of polarizing figure, and I think it's almost a symptom of him, and my reaction a symptom of kind of how we have discourse online in which, you know, it's oftentimes very reactive. It's oftentimes about saying something almost inflammatory, almost because I wanted to say spark a conversation about kind of what happened.
Oh, geez. There you go, Sarah. He's just trying to spark conversation.
Sure. Yes. Just trying to spark conversation. Rita, I mentioned earlier that the Democrats are the party of criminals. They also are, of course, the party of political violence. And they also are, of course, the party of being oppressed. It's an oppression Olympics with them. Who is the most oppressed? I mean, obviously, these people are cheering on political violence because that is what they embrace. That is what they love. That is what they want because the ends justifies the means. And then they do this cute little thing where they pretend later on that I was just pretending, or I was just joking, or I didn't actually mean it, or I was just trying to spark a conversation. I mean, these are bottom of the barrel people. And the fact of the matter is, this is, don't forget, the same party who wants to cancel Republicans for saying things 20 years ago, right? They have to go back 20, 30 years when someone is 15 years old because they said a mean word, they said a bad word, they said a naughty word, and they try to ruin your lives over it. And now they want to cry foul over the fact that this guy was celebrating political violence and had real life consequences to it. This is consequence culture now, and they're going to reap what they sow on this. And I say more of this because they deserve it.
And the left is the same wherever you look, whether it's the Democrats in the US, whether it's the Labor or the Greens in the UK, or our own left-wing activists here in Australia. They're all cut from the same cloth, and it's the same issues, the same excuses, the same rationalisations. Now, I want to ask you about Thomas Crook. We had in the past couple of weeks new data on this man who came a few millimetres from changing the history of the world. He came a few millimetres away from assassinating President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. We saw his online footprint for the first time a couple of weeks ago, the way he was radicalised, his far-left political views. And yet the Media Research Centre report that not a single one of the nearly 1,000 stories pushed by big tech news giants, Google News, MSN News, Yahoo News, AOL and Apple News, covered this story, covered the New York Post bombshell expose, revealing also how the FBI botched the Crooks probe. I just can't understand this. As we discussed on this program then, FBI Chief Christopher Wray testified to Congress that Crooks had little presence on social media and that he didn't really reveal a political motivation. We know that's false, Sarah. Why are so many media outlets reluctant to cover this extraordinary development in this extraordinary story?
Yeah, Rita, it's because it's the same thing that they always do, but on a much larger scale. It's the same thing that these mainstream media outlets do. When something that happens, a shooting, a murder, something that happens in this country that is very violent and very terrible, when it doesn't fit their motivations and their political ideology, when it doesn't fit what the mainstream media wants to happen, when it's a black man who is, of course, committing violence against a white woman, when it doesn't fit their ideology, they just magically, poof, forget about it. It's like it never existed. The problem here, Rita, I have more of a problem with our FBI not giving us the transparency that we are so owed in this particular case, especially under Trump 2.0. We need answers. I want to know why Christopher Wray and his associates went to Congress and testified and told Congress that this man not only had a very small digital footprint, but also had one in which he espoused Republican ideologies. Now we know the rest of the story, which is, of course, Rita, when you go through it, he was a Republican. He was a Trump guy until all of a sudden, Rita, mysteriously in 2020, he was espousing the exact opposite rhetoric. He was espousing very violent rhetoric against President Trump and other Republicans and political leaders. Why was that? What happened in that COVID era to radicalize Thomas Crooks? We need answers to this, and the mainstream media is not going to search for them. So we really need independent journalists. I've been covering it on The Blaze, people like Miranda Devine over at the New York Post. We need to be digging for these answers, and we need to not let up, because we really need to understand why this happened, how this came to be, and who all was behind it.
Absolutely. How he was radicalized, and that online footprint for that last 4 years of his life was significant. It wasn't just one or two posts. This guy was radicalized. He became a hard left activist after, as you said, initially being pro-Trump back 4 or 5 years earlier. So this is something that certainly needs further investigation. Now, I want to ask you about the president's health and mental acuity. This has come under scrutiny. The New York Times is very concerned about President Trump's health. They're saying shorter days, signs of fatigue. Trump faces realities of aging in office. I mean, this is rich work coming from the New York Times that ignored or actively covered up the real cognitive decline of Joe Biden. Sarah, tell me about this story and what the reaction has been.
Oh, I mean, it's just, I couldn't laugh more at this story. This is the most laughable article. Shorter days, greater fatigue. I mean, we just had a Weekend at Bernie's president for 4 years. The guy was like 250 years old. He couldn't walk. He couldn't talk. He couldn't make string together a coherent thought. And on top of that, I believe it was something like 40% of his time in office he spent on a Delaware beach, like a beached whale just laying out, right? We're just sunbathing. And so it's just laughable at this point. They want to take every opportunity they can to try to get Trump. The problem is they're just never going to get him. The guy is, for whatever reason, he's healthier than a horse. He is healthier than most 40-year-old men. It's just, he's an enigma. He is a mystery. And on top of that, not only is his body in perfect health, his mind, obviously, he's there. He's sharp. He's holding press conferences multiple times a day. He's talking to reporters. He's the most transparent president ever. So it's just laughable at this point. Here in the United States, we really, honestly, we laugh at these media outlets who try everything they can. They tried to stop him from getting into office. They tried with the 91 indictments. They tried raiding Mar-a-Lago. They tried assassination attempts. It didn't work. He's in office. The American people wanted him, and now they will try at whatever the cost to try to discredit him. The problem is nobody believes them anymore.
Sarah Gonzalez, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.